You look at the names on this roster, one of the best rosters ever assembled, in my opinion. But we know at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. You got to play the game. So, Taylor, what are your expectations for this team as a whole in 2024?
Well, win the West, first of all, which they're going to do. I mean, there's nobody that should even touch them. I mean, look at last year. They won 100 games with a team that I think was way weaker than this. They easily clear 100 wins. I'm guessing they win more like 105, and I would not be surprised if they won close to 110. But no one cares about that total.
No one cares.
The only team that really needs to win a World Series more than this Dodgers team is maybe the Astros, for all the reasons that we talked about in the last one. Like, their dynasty, their legacy is on the line, right, as is the Dodgers. Like, this is kind of becoming the time where they've got to prove it. Their legacy is starting to get called into question. And it was one of the things that Shohei respected about them in their pitch to him, is like, they consider the last 10 years a failure because they haven't produced the amount of championships that they want. And
right,
every move they've made in the offseason, especially with the pitching, they're managing this entire roster for the playoffs. Like you said, like, Dave Roberts is saving Walker Buehler's bullets for the playoffs. So really, they got, I mean, the expectations to win the World Series this year. Like, it's pretty much that simple. And I think if they don't win one within the next 3 years, like, this is a cataclysmic failure. In a healthy matchup between the Braves and the Dodgers right now, it's kind of it's basically a coin flip for me. These are two really incredible teams, but I do think the Dodgers have them beat in one important category, and I think that's starting pitching depth. But they've got to keep it healthy going into the end of the year. But I think they're hedging their risks really well, and I think they're inevitably going to go into the playoffs with enough starting pitching to get it done. Again, man, I think this team's most intimidating opponent is themselves. You know, the team, the organization, and a lot of these individual players are going to go into the playoffs with a lot of baggage. And if they can avoid getting sucked back into that narrative that they can't win when it matters, and I think if they can refocus that frustration and give themselves that competitive fuel from that, I don't think there's anyone that can beat them.
It's like you said, Taylor, there are things that can derail it for sure. Obviously, health is, any sport, health is going to derail, a championship. But like you said, there's so much pressure on this team now. There's so much expectations on this team now. And, as far as individuals go, if you let that affect, if that affects an individual, that could start to affect another individual. And then it kind of spreads throughout the locker room. And that's one of my other concerns, is potentially the locker room. There's so much money in that locker room. There is so many egos in that locker room. How are they all going to be able to mesh? I personally, obviously, haven't been in the MLB level, but the teams that I've been on, the college level, the semi-pro level, the best teams that I've been on haven't been the most talented teams. It's been the teams who really, really want to play for each other, the teams who get along the most, the teams who bond the best, the teams who have the best chemistry. Those are the best teams that I've ever been on. And like it happened my junior year in college, we were way more talented than my senior year. We sucked because we all hated each other, right? My senior year, we loved each other, and we ended up having one of the best years in school history, right? So listen, if things break right for them, I think they could seriously challenge that all-time wins record. That's how talented they are. Like, if their rotation stays healthy or gets healthy in terms of those guys who are banged up, they could easily be above 110 wins. Like, that's very reasonable, because last year it was all offense and they got 100 wins. So with an even better offense on paper and they get good pitching, again, this could be historic. But on the other side of things, I think worst case scenario for them, I think there's a chance, maybe less than 5%, that they don't win the division. I could see Arizona maybe taking a big, huge leap and potentially getting to them. But again, that's worst case scenario for the Dodgers. I think they'd still be around 93 or 94 wins. And, the Diamondbacks get to 95, 96, and they'd still have a wild card spot. But again, Taylor, like you mentioned, at the end of the day, I don't even think the Dodgers care about division titles anymore. They've won 10 out of the last 11 divisions. They've won 100 games 5 times, including 111 games in 2022. They've been to 6 NLCS. They've been to 3 World Series in that same time period, but just 1 World Series title, and that came in the 2020 shortened season, which I personally believe was legit, but I know a lot of people don't. Okay. Yeah. So I think if they had the exact same regular season as the D-backs did last year and won the title, I don't think anyone would really care that they won 84 games in the regular season and were the last team to make the playoffs, because it is 100% about championships now. You don't defer $700 million 10 years in the future. You don't sign a guy who's never pitched in the MLB to a $300 million contract. You don't sign and trade for future MVPs or other MVPs or all-stars or top-of-the-line rotation starters to just make the playoffs, make the NLCS, or make the World Series. You do it to win the World Series. That is the bottom line. This team is the exact sports definition of championship or bust. If they don't win a title this year, it is a 100% abject failure. There is no denying that, and that is exactly what these guys signed up for. You have to win a World Series, and they'll have a great shot to do that. But as we've seen in the MLB playoffs, anything can happen. And we talked about question marks pitching wise. If they don't pitch in the postseason, we've seen that offense go cold before, okay? And another NLCS or NLDS exit is certainly still on the board as well. There is no doubt. There is no doubt that's still on the board. But there's also no doubt that it is without question that they are the World Series favorite. But again, you have to finish. And if you don't, there is going to be hell to pay for it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, stay healthy. You know what we need this year in particular? We need like a bell, like a ship's bell.
Yeah.
And we need a little sign that says, assuming they stay healthy, because I feel like we say that just like all the time with so many different teams. And I feel like we're going to be saying that a lot with this team in particular. And then we can just like ring the bell every time we say it.
Then we can ring the bell. I know we're going to say it with our own personal team a lot as well. So that being the Yankees. So we definitely need something like that to alert the people that it is definitely all on health. And I mean, unfortunately, again, that's sports. You know, if your star quarterback gets hurt, you're not winning the Super Bowl. If LeBron James gets hurt, you're not winning the title.
I actually heard one of my favorite analogies today when I was doing some more research on these Dodgers pitchers. It was one of the writers that writes for Pitcher List, and he was like, the way it always goes with these like 6-7 man rotations is it starts out like the Fellowship of the Ring in Lord of the Rings. You know, you start off with like these 9 guys, and they're all looking great, you know, when they're in Rivendell before they set off on this quest. And then by the end, you end up with 2 guys that are just haggard on the side of a mountain and are on the verge of death. And I thought that was a pretty nice way of describing for the Dodgers last year. You basically ended up with Kershaw and Bobby Miller as the Sam and Frodo on the side of Mount Doom as it's erupting at the end. I think this year they've got it. I think they're going to end up there's going to be some casualties on the way for sure.
They just got to stay healthy, and if they're in the postseason healthy, they've got a better shot than everybody else, you know. But if they're not, then we'll see. But